There was frustration in the organization. There was a lot of digital friction happening because not only was the tool.
Let's say that we are at this spot, but basically the organization is frustrated like from the bottom up and the top down because of failed transformation. How would you arrive as Jedi to that spot and save the day?
Every organization needs three things.
That brought some memories from my past. So basically, as a leader, you don't have to be liked, but you need to be respected. All right, and in order to be respected, you need.
You will start using this tool and you will like it. Jedi mind trick.
Welcome to the Internet of Things Equation podcast. I'm your host, Łukasz Malinowski, and let's get started with today's conversation. I've got my friend with me, Val, who is expert in many different fields, digital transformation included. Today we will actually validate the rule of 80-20 or 2080, if that really applies to the digital transformation. But before doing that, Val, could you briefly provide your track record for the audience?
Yeah, g'day Lucas. Nice to talk to you again. Always a pleasure. Thanks for the invitation. For those that don't know me, my name is Val Jelinic. I'm a senior leader in digital transformation and IT solutions with about 40 years of experience bringing new technologies in the world and helping organizations get the most from them. I started my career in the Royal Australian Air Force, where I spent 10 years working on all sorts of fun and interesting secure networks and technologies. From there, I was involved in rolling out GSM networks across the globe, from Brazil to Siberia. And I was also a part of the advent of using the internet for voice communications and IP telephony. And later, I spent some time with the LoRa Alliance, where I was an active contributor and participant in the LoRa Alliance, helping that IoT LoRaWAN, LPWAN technology gain traction and really open up the door for IoT at scale. And what all that taught me is that technology on its own doesn't guarantee success. The real transformation happens when people understand it, people adopt it, and they make it part of how they work every day. And that's really what I love focusing on, bridging the gap between innovation and implementation, and making sure that technology empowers people rather than just being another solution that companies or enterprises install and force upon people. So for me, digital transformation is never really about the technology or the solution. It's really about the success of it when people adopt it and embrace the change and gain a benefit from it.
Yeah, well, that's a bit unfortunate, to be honest, because I love technology and I could play with technology all day long. But yeah, I must admit that you're probably right. Digital transformation is more about the people side of things and technology is just a tool. Though that 80-20 split, do you really believe that digital transformation is that much focused on people? Because digital means that you take something that is non-digital and you codify it into some kind of tool, maybe some kind of AI agent nowadays, but still that is only the 20 effort, the focus you should put into digital transformation, and the 80 is the people part. What makes you believe that this 80-20 rule is still applicable to this?
I think you've lived this yourself, Lucas. I mean, with your experiences with doing digital transformation and IoT on AWS platforms, where this 80-20 rule comes from is a well-known Pareto principle that states that 80% of the effort is wasted on the last 20% of any activity, or the other way around. The first 80% of anything will cost you about 20% of your time. And the lesson here is that with digital transformation, what we see is, and what we forget about is that 20% is about the technology and 80% is about the people using the technology. And consequently, or sadly, most budgets are set that way. Companies invest a lot of money, 80% of the budget, in the technology itself, and very little of the budget in educating the people or investing time in correct change management so that the organization is ready, people are trained, the expectation is communicated clearly and easily, and more importantly, that people are on board with that change, because ultimately those technologies, those tools, those solutions and systems, etc., are in the end going to be successful if people use them. So there's a nice phrase that I can't remember where I picked it up. I think it was from the Things conference. You can't code your way to adoption, right? What does that mean? You can throw a lot of resources at developing and coding platforms and systems and bringing a use case or a business case into an organization, but you can't force the people to use it. Do you see it the same way?
It is easier to purchase software, like hardware, whatever, right? Basically, some kind of tools, because you've got the invoice, you can justify the expense, and this is the easy part. And probably that's why I left technology, because this is the easy
The
part.
easy part.
Yeah, and the hard part is to convince people to use it, because if you've got to convince people to use it, that means that you started the whole thing from the wrong angle from the very beginning, right? It's not that you bring some shiny tools and then force people to use them. You should probably extract knowledge and experience from people and find the best tools or create the best tools to fit into the mix.
I think also in your kind of activities in your history that you've done, I'm guessing here that you have a lot of engagement with people. You pull a lot of information about a digital persona, you build those, and then your output, hopefully, is to meet the need or the fit for purpose, fit for use tool for that persona, for that group of people or audience you're delivering your tool to, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So you need to find the proper tool. First of all, you need to understand the domain. And by the domain, that might be like the bakery, that might be telco, whatever, right? Because every domain got different language, they've got different needs. And the most tricky part is that they've got different intuition. So you might feel that you kind of understand each other, but in essence, you're talking about two different topics. And the sooner you realize that, the better for you and for the outcome. And you being the IoT Jedi, I'm pretty sure that you've got a special power to kind of get into people's head and to extract the knowledge and the experience.
I began calling myself like this IoT Jedi because there's a scene I really like in Star Wars, in the New Hope, the first one that came out, and it's where Obi-Wan Kenobi and Luke Skywalker are in a land speeder, and they get stopped by the stormtroopers who are looking for droids, who are looking for R2D2 and then C3PO, and I just remembered there's a is it? Oh yeah, it's over there. I've got the stormtrooper helmet sitting in the background, and Kenobi goes, he uses the Force, and he goes, "These are not the droids you're looking for," right? Very bad Obi-Wan Kenobi impression, but it relates to digital transformation in a very funny way, in that there is no Jedi mind trick when it comes to this is the solution you're looking for. This is the digital transformation you're looking for, right? It's got to be, it's got to be built in such a way that there is no digital friction. There's a digital acceptance of the tool that's going to be rolled out, because that tool is going to be used by people. In one experience I had, I won't mention the name of the company, but things were going really well. The company I was working for sold this wonderful tool. It was very useful, very powerful tool, provided a lot of flexibility and information and data for that organization that we're delivering the solution to. And it used a bit of scheduling, but the people inside the organization, half of the organization decided to use the new scheduling tool. The other half kept using the old paper-based system. And then instead of streamlining the work, everything just slowed down, because half the organization is using one thing, the other half of the organization doing something else. There was frustration in the organization. There was a lot of digital friction happening, because not only was the tool not understood, it wasn't a bad tool, it was a great tool, but the adoption wasn't coordinated. It was like upgrading the road on a freeway and then forgetting to tell half the drivers that, which road to use. So people kept doing what people normally do, and that is they go back to doing what they're comfortable with, what's inside their safety zone, that they feel confident to use. And so, yeah, I would say that in that particular case, when the change management came about, that organization lost a lot of time. So in the Jedi sense, there was no top-down, you will start using this tool and you will like it, Jedi mind trick. People reverted back to using the things they were used to using, and it did fail for the first 6 to 12 months, but slowly was adopted and came to be the go-to tool that people would say afterwards, how do we live without this before?
Actually, you brought up a very interesting topic, which is what I observed quite a few times, unfortunately, is that the digital transformation often kind of creates, let's say, parallel universe to what is already there, right? And instead of simplifying and streamlining tasks it needs to help with, it adds a friction because it adds yet another tool you need to learn as the operator, right? And you need to use on your daily basis. And all of a sudden you've got, as you said, half of people is using the old tools, old systems, maybe pen and paper. The other half is trying to use the new tool. So the new tool doesn't have all data that it's supposed to have, and it basically fails to provide the value, while the organization gets more and more frustrated. So let's say that we are at this spot, but basically the organization is frustrated, like from the bottom up and the top down, because of failed transformation. How would you arrive as Jedi to that spot and save the day?
I think you've probably seen this yourself, but if it doesn't happen already at the beginning, what I've learned through my experiences in the last 15 years, specifically in IoT, is every organization needs a champion. They need a Steve Jobs. They need someone who has a vision, an advocate, whatever you want to call it, advocate, evangelist, the voice with the vision inside the organization that leads from the top down or represents the top down approach, but understands how to engage from the bottom up. And by that, I mean, it's great when people get very excited. You and I, we're geeks. We get excited about new technologies and we get distracted by bright, shiny objects, maybe, and love to create new things. But we don't represent 80% of people inside an organization. And so every organization needs three things: that evangelist, the person with the vision who is believable, and then the champion to make it happen. By champion, we forget what the word champion means. Champion isn't a winner. A champion is the person who steps up and represents a group of people or themselves in the game or in the race or what have you to enter the competition. And that's exactly what it means in digital transformation. You need a champion who's going to go into battle, not only for your organization, but for the change, for the technology, for the good of the organization, and be that intermediary between whichever partners, external partners you're using, third-party suppliers, as well as internally towards executive management, but also the lower levels of the organization, who, if we think of a pyramid, they're the ones who will be living the day-to-day. So that champion needs to be their voice. And consequently, that champion, that evangelist, that Steve Jobs, has to communicate that vision very clearly, intelligently, and at the onset do a lot of listening, because people resist change. And that champion needs to massage the story so that people are made to feel secure about their jobs, secure about the way they do their work today, that the impending change is going to have a positive impact to everybody across the organization, not just at senior level, board level, etc., to make the company more money or save on costs or do things much more performant, but that the person within the organization wants to use that tool or that solution in order to do their job better. And I keep circling back to this kind of point, and it probably gets lost a little bit in some of the conversations I have, but you, me, anybody in a company, we take pride in our work. From the person sweeping the floor to the person changing the toilet rolls, to the project manager, to the VP of whatever, we take great pride in achieving a success. And that is what that champion should do. That champion should be that central focal point that gets everybody on board with the communication and the message, is able to translate the value not just to the top of the organization, but to the bottom of the organization, and create an expectancy that, hey, this is going to be really cool. My job's going to be better. I'm going to learn more things. I'm going to do my job more efficiently. I'm going to be able to do and fulfill those tasks associated with me and my team to the best or better of my abilities, right? So nothing's perfect. I'm not saying the champion is a genius like Steve Jobs, but that champion needs to have a mindset where there's a grounding of whatever change is about to happen, and it's somebody really, really believes it to their core and is able to communicate that and spread the message and get people on board with that message as quickly as possible, but also as humanely as possible. I had a fantastic manager that I worked for very recently, and he was a unique CEO in that he always talked about the human level. He always brought things down to a human level. It's great about the change, it's great about the technology, but Lucas, how do you feel about what we're going to do? Do you believe that this can help you personally, whether you are the toilet cleaner or the project manager or whoever? And he was able to get down to the same level and talk peer to peer on human terms about the change that's happening and get people on board, which is why he was very, very successful with implementing digital transformation, project solutions, bringing the change to customers, yeah? Because people just naturally got onboarded because he came down to that level or came to the right level to communicate the benefits and get people excited about the change to come. Have you had similar experiences?
Before I answer your question, I want to throw a curveball to you, which is speaking about that champion. Is that mandatory that he or she got the budget to spend, or they can be somewhere in the middle? And to your point, they can report to the C-level stakeholders that got the final vote on the budget and on changing how the company operates.
I think that's a really, really good question. I don't think there's an easy answer or a one size fits all answer to that. The champion often is empowered to do a lot of things. The champion at times will have a budget, and that may or may not include the change management part for people. It most definitely will be tied to the solution, the selection of the partner, the execution and the operation of a solution being rolled out. I'm not sure what your experiences have been, but in my experiences, that change management part is often forgotten or checked off very quickly because did we have a meeting and inform 240 people that we're having a change? Yes, job done. But no, job is not done. You haven't gotten the people on board with the idea. You haven't set up training just yet. You haven't communicated how long this will take and brought people into being part of that process of change. So in my experience, no, they haven't been empowered with budget as such, but yes, they are responsible and accountable for communicating the change, being a part of the change management across the organization. But ultimately, I have to say no, not in the experience that I've had. What about yourself?
Most successful digital transformation that I've been part of had the owner that got the budget to spend, and that was fixed budget. It's not like he or she could spend whatever amount of money, but they had budget and they had, let's say, that blank permission that they can reorganize the company or department. It doesn't have to be the whole company as such. It might be just a department, and then you can really start transforming both the organization, like people, and software, which is the easy part, as we agreed. Absolutely right. And the reason for that is without a budget you cannot do much, right? You can ask
I
for
agree.
approval of every single decision that you need to make that requires company to spend some money. And I'm a huge believer in very iterative approach. So basically, it's not like that's the waterfall. So you plant the whole thing up front. You've got your schedule and you go with it, right? You basically start with small changes, and actually you start without any changes. To your point, you start with speaking with people, with like from the very, very early stages of the whole initiative. And once you understand their pain points and you understand they actually strength, then you can start codifying that. And once you've got a budget and you've got that pre-approval by the owners of the company, then you can iterate very, very fast. Of course, you need to be careful not to overspend, but still that speed of you taking decisions and iterating, it shows, like, it keeps everyone engaged. Because if the digital transformation has started half a year ago and you cannot predict when it's going to end, then everyone kind of gets bored and are not motivated that much to participate. So that's why I think that is very, very important. But to your point, if you got the champion and people trust that champion, that he or she can push the whole thing forward, then probably it's not mandatory.
Yeah, I want to speak about an example where it was quite similar to this about budgets, and it was kind of like an afterthought. But I'll start with a question. So, in your experiences when you engage with potential customers or potential projects and opportunities, when is the change management part brought up? When is the conversation about what has to happen to the people using the tool come into the conversation? Because for me, it's never at the beginning. It's always along the thought process of the person or the company that says, we've decided to do this. And then you hear about the why they decided kind of down the road a little bit, maybe in the same meeting, but they often start with, we decided to do XYZ, and we're going to do XYZ or ABC in order to get XYZ, and everybody's on board. And that's it. That's kind of like the skimmed over part. And when I hear statements like that, there's a little red flag that goes up to ask a question. And that is, okay, very simply, who did you speak to? Who did you speak to? Who made the decision? Was it something that you saw from ground roots, or was it just a top-down approach? Like, where did that decision thought process come from? And sadly, more often than not, it's because competitors are doing it. There's the pressure in the market. You're laughing, but you know this is true. And they haven't really thought about how that applies to their organization with regard to their people and who will be using it. You're laughing. You have the same experience?
Yeah. I love the reason why people decide to start digital transformation, or maybe try to add IoT to whatever they are using, because competitors are doing so, right? And that is the worst possible setup that you can start with. And because it is very, like, people try not to admit, right, that they are doing that because competitors are doing so. They try to fake some reasoning behind it, but you can easily tell, like, when you just speak with C-level executives, that that's the actual motivation, that they are afraid that they will be fall behind, and that's why they want to copy that whatever else is doing. And whenever I identify this, I always push back. I'm saying, like, it's not a good way to start whatever engagement, and digital transformation is extremely complex engagement because of the people. Like, software is easy, people are difficult. Maybe for me, but that's how it looks, right? So yeah, like myself, I would push back. I would even say, guys, like, let's not start this. Like, let's please do not send me your money just yet. Let's set up the stage so everyone is going to be happy at the very end.
Yeah, I have a similar experience. I can't mention a name. I really, really, really want to drop some company names, but I'll be a little bit more ambiguous. But this company about some years ago came and said, we need to implement this technology because we're being left behind in the marketplace. Okay, which is a common story you've heard. We need as quickly as possible bring this in and begin levering it. Our people need to start using it. Otherwise, our competitors will take away our market share or expand their market presence in this market. Okay, good. Why? Why are your competitors using this? What is the business thinking and the business rationale as to why your competitors have recognized something and already implemented it and are already using it that you missed? And I'm not trying to be disrespectful, but you missed it, or you chose to ignore it, or whatever other business decision was taken not to do the same thing. And now it's become such a pain point and a pressure point, you must do it immediately. These are very bad configurations for success, right? Having to do something immediately. If you've spoken to anyone who has done a triathlon, there's three key disciplines. You have to be pretty good at each one: cycling, swimming, and running. And it's not something you just wake up on a Friday evening and decide, tomorrow I'm going in this triathlon, right? Because everyone else is running the triathlon, I need to run the triathlon. And then suddenly you get a bike and you go running and you go swimming. You will fail catastrophically if you finish at all. What is better would be to train your organization to recognize what are those essential things in your organization, your business, that need to be on the radar, need to be on the roadmap to evolve in that direction. Why am I going down this story? It's because the change management part is also part of that roadmap. We need to build up people's training. We have to help people become more familiar with smaller tools that they can embrace in day to day or week to week or month to month, so that change is a natural and instinctive thing inside a business. Instead of an order coming from top down, it's just an ethos and an ethic inside a company that change is good. I like it when I go on a new training. I'm going on a new training to learn a new app on my smartphone. I never downloaded an app on a smartphone before because I'm in my 50s and there's this new way of working, and all these young kids are on all these social media apps and whatever, and I've got no clue, but I'm learning about it at work because I've been a skilled person for 40 years of my career, and now I'm getting to use this new technology. This is awesome. It makes my day interesting, right? So that small story is about having the right leadership inside a company to recognize what technologies are out there, but also prepare the organization to be open to those technologies, to understand what's needed for their business and move their business with market trends. I've seen a lot of market trends in my career. I've seen the advent of the internet, IP telephony over the internet, voice over IP. I've seen Wi-Fi communications evolve. I've been part of that low power wide area network disruption of LoRaWAN and NB-IoT and all this. But at some point, there was a resistance to all those changes until somebody took a chance and then saw a benefit, implemented that benefit, and exercise and leave it a massive advantage to capture a market. The same with the people inside those organizations. They attracted people who are also those kinds of thinkers. Okay, change is inevitable. I'm not exactly sure what the future looks like, but I'm going to go with this because if it succeeds, and when it does, this is going to be awesome. It's going to be great. There's a lot of stories where technologies haven't succeeded. But one thing's for sure, that after the technology comes and goes, the people are still there. Right? The people have those experiences. The people are more educated. The people are more familiar with how things work, if they don't work. And those are the voices that truly hold the experience within any organization. I know I got a little bit off the track there, but 20%, 80%, 20% is about technology, 80% is about the people. A lot of technologies go away and disappear, but that 80% of the people are still there doing that digital transformation in different ways, in using different tools or different processes, and they will still continue if they're all heading in the right direction, right?
Absolutely. You underlined the importance of change management a few times through this conversation. So maybe you could share your framework or your best practice, how to implement and govern change management alongside the transformation process.
I'm no change management expert. My forte isn't in this field, but what I think the three kernels of change management are definitely empowerment, empowering people to do two different things. Question the change. That's a natural thing. Why are we doing it? What purpose is it serving? Why are we having to do this or use this to go? And then listening as part of that empowerment, listening both ways to what's being communicated and the reasoning why, but also I've often found that if I can't answer the why clearly and concisely, then I don't know it well enough. And so that brings the responsibility back on me to go know it well enough to be able to communicate it and convince other people that this change is fantastic. Right? The second one is leadership. The leadership, along with empowerment, is that leadership part where General Eisenhower had a little sign on his desk in the White House when he was president of America in the 50s through the 60s. And it said, the buck stops here. And so leadership is about being accountable for the change. It's about being responsible for not just the success, but leading that organization from where it is to where it needs to go and making sure everyone's on board and going in the same direction. And a good leader is very communicative at all hierarchies of the organization, up and down. And a good leader instills confidence. What I'm saying is not all leaders are popular, but a good leader can communicate what's happening and bring everybody on board and go with that, right? So empowerment and leadership. And the third one might be of a surprise to most people, but the right to fail. Having the right to fail, or the get out of jail free card when you do fail or if you do fail, is not a bad thing. A lot of people avoid failure. Failure within many cultures is a very negative thing. But we as human beings, we learn from failure. We learn from trials and failure to work out what works, what doesn't work, what succeeds, and what will succeed. And so failing fast, you've heard this, failing fast is very positive because you work out what doesn't work very quickly and are able to change direction, pivot, and go towards a direction where you will succeed. So those three things within change management, for me, are the cornerstones. It's the empowerment, it's the leadership, and the right to fail, or the freedom to fail and try something else. Because too many organizations get locked into either a mindset, a technology, it's either NB-IoT or it's nothing, or it's satellite and it's nothing, it's this solution or it's nothing. And I don't see it that way. I really do see this as a living thing that progresses as it's moving forward. So that would be my takeaway and my modus operandi of any, let's say, digital transformation involving change management. Make sure the empowerment's there, make sure the leadership is there, and not be afraid of the failure if and when it happens.
Nice. I want to focus on one aspect that you mentioned that is loosely connected to what we were talking about, but very important, and that brought some memories from my past. So basically, as a leader, you don't have to be liked, but you need to be respected. All right, and in order to be respected, you need to prove that you worth it, right? Because respect is not something that on my business card it says I'm a leader, you need to respect me. That doesn't work like that, right? You need to earn that respect, and with all the respect comes the trust. Even if people don't like you for whatever reason, right? They trust your judgment and they trust in what you said. Like if they fail, it doesn't mean that you will punish them, right? Because if they fail, that is kind of your fault that you assigned the task to them in the first place. Or they failed because you assigned a task that was bound to fail, but no one knew that at the moment you started the whole thing, right? So, and I led a few teams in my life. Some people liked me, other not really. But I think that is very, very important to have. And when the things get really bad, like the budget ends and there is no tangible outcome of the whole exercise, if you are the leader, you need to stand up and take the blame, because that's on you, right? That might not be always your fault as such, but you need to take all the blame. That's what I say.
Yeah, there's always, as a leader, and I was laughing before because I spent 10 years in the military in Australia. So respect is something you must give, you respect the rank, not often the man, but you must respect the rank, right? And that's a common saying we had, that respect the rank, not necessarily the man. The respect for the man comes later when you see what kind of a person that man or woman is as a leader. And in the military, you're not there to be liked as a leader. Your job is not to be liked. You're not there because you're popular. There was no election that voted this person in as the leader of your unit, your battalion, your what have you. That person has and occupies that role in that position. And so the respect is immediate for that role. But that person can definitely lose respect or gain respect through their actions. And one point that you mentioned, which I'm very happy you did, a good leader steps up when there is failure and takes the accountability and the ownership of that collective failure, let's say, on him or herself. It doesn't mean that everybody failed or that leader failed, but it's a recognition that something didn't go as it should have. If we don't learn from this exercise, if we don't learn from what failed, we can't improve and do better for the next one. So those leaders that can actively step up and sincerely and genuinely say from their position down, hey, you guys did nothing wrong. You team, you did nothing wrong. You did the best you could. I assigned the tasks and I assigned the responsibilities accordingly as I did. And they recognize that they are in charge and they are responsible and accountable for those decisions. So the beautiful thing, and I mean this sincerely, is when you find those examples, both I was lucky enough to serve under two such leaders in the military and two or three such people inside organizations in my last 20 years experience in Europe. I won't mention their names, but they were fantastic leaders. They weren't easy to work with sometimes, but they were the exact people you needed to help you succeed. And so that's my final point about this leadership. Those leaders there, whether they're digital transformation leaders or what have you, hopefully they don't forget they are there to help you succeed. Their raison d'etre, their reason for being, is to help you succeed so the organization succeeds. If there is a failure, those very good leaders are the first ones to put their hands up and say, okay, that was my fault, or we screwed up, but we'll do better and we'll move forward. Yeah. Have you had similar experiences?
Yeah, absolutely, and owning that failure and not pointing fingers, that basically makes your team to trust you, right? And when you've got the second and third attempt, they will work even harder, not because they are afraid, but because they kind of feel that you're with them, right? So that's what I would tell from my experience, that finally it worked every single time, but it was not always nice and easy. But because just being honest and taking accountability, I think that's the best way.
If I can add one small thing to what you just said, that word honesty, that's extremely powerful. So even the leaders that you may not like, if they're honest with you, honesty takes a lot of courage, frankly, right? To be honest with someone who you like is very easy, but to work with people you dislike or you don't get along well with, honesty is a great respect that you can pay somebody or you can pay each other. And so in the context of our discussion today, often we have to communicate things that are not pleasant. The solution may not work as expected. The feature or the thing that was supposed to be delivered at a certain point isn't working and we have a problem. Being honest helps in a great way, because in business, decisions need to be made on information. And if that data is not flowing, or the tool isn't working, or the application doesn't have that feature that it should have, communicating those quickly and concisely to your customer or to your manager or to your leader is extremely important, but also valuable. That organization immediately recognizes, Lucas is a guy we can count on. He will be honest with us, even when the news is bad. There's many cultures where delivering bad news is a very bad thing. I don't share that perspective. I share the perspective of honesty, because people need to be informed, and based on information, people can make better decisions that don't just affect me, but affect the organization and other people. So honesty in leadership, both ways, up and down, and towards customers, and specifically with digital transformation, because let's face it, seldom have I ever seen anything work first time round, right? You have a plan, there's a scope of work, there's an implementation, something will go wrong. Some unanticipated thing will fail, something will be discovered that you couldn't plan for, there'll be some unforeseen thing that changes the landscape of what that tool or what that process or what that system was designed to do. And the best thing that you can do is be honest and upfront. You'll gain a lot of respect, a lot of trust, and hopefully you can solve those problems together and move it forward as it should.
Yeah, that is very well said. One question, totally off topic, but as you were describing that, I had to ask you, basically, as leader of a team that is tasked with transforming a company or a process, what would you value more, the intent and the effort, or the outcome that is provided?
That's a great question. I know it's a great question. I think you know the answer to this already yourself. Output is always highly valued. But human beings are human beings. And you can't just have a standalone example of an output without recognizing an effort. And that effort, the judgment on the effort has to be balanced. Was the effort sufficient? Was the effort correct? Was the effort genuine and sincere, even though it didn't manifest as a desired output? Okay, so as a leader of people who have been given a task to produce an output and not succeeded, you must recognize the effort and identify within the team, how could have we done things better? Is there anything we could have done better to achieve the output? So before you get there, this is why before that process starts, you have a lot of discussions and you have a lot of information discovery and exploration about what is the output being sought and why, and understanding as best as possible what is the effort required to get there. Is it people? Is it tools? Is it knowledge? Is it a skill? Is it a competency? Is it timing? People didn't know that COVID would spread across the world within a year and shut down everything. So was that a lack of effort? Because it definitely resulted in an output that didn't happen for many, many companies. And so we have to be careful with these words blame. We have to park those into the margins and look back and leverage an exercise of, okay, what could have we done better? What were the factors what were the things we didn't focus on that we should have focused on? What were the things that we did focus on that we shouldn't have focused on? I'm hoping that makes sense to you. And learn from that experience. And again, I come back to honesty. If you're honest and respectful with your team and with your customer, etc., you can communicate that relatively freely, and you can solidify that relationship with your team and with the customer by doing that exercise and being transparent. The last thing I'll add to that is, I think we spoke about this last time, in every relationship, you only control 50% of that relationship. So what does that mean? 100% of your 50% is all that you can control. And if you are sincerely and honestly doing everything you can within your power and ability to fulfill that, the 100% of your 50% to the best of your abilities, you can't control that other 50% of that customer or that client or the manager or executive management. You've done your best, right? So I have to throw that in there as well, because effort and output, if your 50% is fulfilled as best as you can, then that's the best you can do, and I will always praise that. I didn't answer your question directly, but what's your opinion?
Well, that was not question to be answered directly, to be honest, right? Because that's why I asked you, because you've got a lot of experience in working with people, and I just wanted to to essentially to steal your brain and learn something from you. So that was the whole behind that. But I would like to go a little bit on a topic of digital transformation, but still being focused on people. So let's say that you help to digitally transform a car manufacturer, for instance, right? And one of your tasks or one of things that you identified, you decided to use very popular approach, which is to create a digital twin of a mechanic, right? And now yet another tricky question: how do you convince that mechanic to share all his knowledge, experience with you, so you can create a digital copy of him without him being worried that he will be fired the next day?
That's a good question. I think it comes back again to the relationship that you can build with this person and find common ground for both people, for both parties. Right? Most skilled and competent professionals tend to knowledge share and transfer knowledge when they are on board with the objective or the goal, right? And not necessarily for their own gain, but people want to be valued, people want to be respected, people want to be useful, right? So I would find a way of engaging with this person that his usefulness and his input is so valued for the success of the output that that could not be replaced by anybody else in that team. He is the unique person that can help that succeed or not. And with that comes the great pride of him being recognized, or him and or her. My apologies, I keep defaulting to him, but I mean obviously any person share in the pride of the success of whatever goal is happening. When people are not recognized, when people are left unseen, and their value is not, what's the word I'm looking for? Not recognized. They're not seen. They're hidden. Then people feel very negative, not just about themselves, but about how they're perceived by a company or a team, right? And so if you ask any plumber or electrician about their value, and they'll put a smile on your face when they say they get a lot of value when they get called out 11 o'clock at night on a Saturday or a Sunday because it's not working or the water's not flowing. Then people value that a lot when somebody will come at 11 o'clock at night and they'll pay money because the person has come. But that same electrician who comes in to fix a washing machine, or a plumber who comes to fix a leaking sink on a Tuesday, Wednesday, or Thursday in the middle of the day is probably not as appreciated, right? So creating the ambience, the atmosphere of a person's value in association with the output and the recognition of their contribution to that output, I think that's exactly where I would go. I've done this in the past where I've worked with people who have been what I call empire builders, or they work in silos and they don't want to share the information. But when they're given the recognition that their contribution will be recognized across the organization, and let's face it, sometimes that they'll receive a compensation for that effort, whether it's bonus or some formal award or what have you, people become very, very motivated and they get on board. But it definitely comes down to that human relationship and the engagement that you can build as a person to a different person, as a person or a leader, asking for help rather than ordering or demanding help. I'll leave you with one anecdote that might help. So in the military, I was part of a tactical operations unit that went out in some very unpleasant places in unpleasant conditions and provided secure telecommunications to frontline troops. And my commanding officer, he didn't have to ask me. He all he had to do was come over and say, "You go there, do that, done." But in fact, I was invited into his office and he asked me, as a commanding officer, he asked me, "Would you mind if you went and did this particular thing for this particular time in this location that would help me very much and would help our unit very much. Could you do that for me? What answer could you give? The only answer you can give is absolutely. So I went off and did the thing, and it was unpleasant, and the mission was fulfilled. And when I came back, there was no fanfare and trumpets and parade. There was a handshake from my commanding officer, not a salute, but a handshake and a sincere thank you that I carry with me today. I'm almost going to start crying because that commanding officer, he died of leukemia some years later. But that set the benchmark for me about what is leadership, what is a manager, how do you engage with people, even when you don't have to. You don't have to engage at that level. So I would use those learnings and those lessons and apply them in that kind of scenario.
Yeah, I think that's a great example. And the way you said it, that you don't, let's say as a CEO, you don't have to engage with the line workers, right? You can stay in your office and just pretend that the car builds itself. But if you've got that courage, right, just to face those people, to ask them about, even if they are really satisfied with what they're doing, because what if they will reply, not really, like you are a shitty CEO, right? Then once again, it's to be, honest, and to just ask follow-up questions. Okay, so how can we make the whole thing better? And
I've got a question for you. I'm going to flip this question around a little bit because you've asked me a lot of things about my experiences, but share with us or share with me one memory where you really felt appreciated and valued because of an output that you produced or something that you delivered that was unexpected, but you received the recognition from a high level person, customer, it doesn't matter, inside your organization, outside of your organization, that you still carry around with you today and inspires you to do good, to do your best.
well, that's a tricky question, but I will answer a different question. I will answer a different question. We can get back to yours, but I had other very personal example of a person that is a role model of being a leader for me. And that happened like 15 years ago. I applied to some position, and without, like, I was not meeting any bar just to be hired for that specific job, right? But that person decided to give it a go, and he hired me, and we became friends years later. And I asked him, like, very openly, some time after that, like, why he decided to hire me. I was clearly not knowing what I'm talking about. Like, I had some strong background, let's say, but for that specific job I was not really good fit at the moment. And he replied that he hired me because of the attitude, because I was very proactive and I was trying to do the right thing, right? And he said that he was obviously aware that I do not know let's say, I do not have the hard skills to do whatever was required of me, right? But I had the motivation to learn, and he said that he just gambled with me on that one, right? And what we ended up doing was the major transformation of the telco company in Poland. Like, we've done a huge thing together at the very end. So yeah, so this is what I would consider to be a leader, and not to, like, just focus on the requirements, right? In terms, do you know this skill or that skill? Because today that's even a bit more blurry than it used to be, when you had to write all the source code yourself without it being generated for you. Yeah, that's how I look at this.
It's a
And
nice story, very nice story. Imagine now that story, let's say, in a context of a champion or evangelist comes into a meeting room with you and says, "Hey, Lucas, we're going to do X, Y, Z now. And I want you to lead the training part of this digital transformation. And I want you to lead and manage the onboarding of 250 people to the tool, to the app, to the way of working with that new tool inside an organization. Because, Lucas, You may not understand the technology the best, but your attitude and your people skills are the best suited to bring those 250 people along the journey. How would that make you feel?
Yeah, well, that's exactly it, right? You first of all you show that you trust that person, right? That they will do their best, and just because doing that, because giving that trust, you kind of force them to give their best in a way, right? That's kind of maybe a bit convoluted, but that's the way
No, it is.
it
It's
works.
spot on. Yeah, it's spot on. And that's kind of where I'm going with this. It is about having each other's backs because just by the definition, digital transformation creates disruption. It creates change. It's painful. It's scary. It's people are afraid of change. They want the status quo to stay the same. They want to know when they come to work or come into an organization exactly where the boundaries are, what they're going to be doing day to day. They want that comfort and security that they're familiar with, that nothing will change because change is scary, right? But change is inevitable. Inevitable. I do not live in Australia. I lived in Australia 30 years ago. I never thought I would live in Europe. Change is inevitable. I speak 5 languages. I never thought in my life I'd speak more than just English. Change is inevitable. I never thought that I would see analog phones go to digital phones, go to mobile phones, go to digital mobile phones, go to internet. Change is inevitable. Our communications have changed immensely in 40 years. There's been a rapid amount of change. So you and I have chosen, we could have been accountants. We could have gone and done something where nothing changes. Things are the same. Numbers stay the same. Formulas stay the same. Yeah, there's applications you can use to help, but those things don't change. But we gravitate towards a very narrow set of people in a narrow industry where change is inevitable. So maybe you and I aren't the best people to talk to because we are the crazy people that are always in that change and helping people to understand that change and use the change effectively, right? But to have my back, I want another crazy person to have my back because that other crazy person, Lucas or whatever their names are, Matt or Andrew or Mark or Dennis, it doesn't matter. But we're all crazy enough to know we can succeed and we can help an organization succeed because we're crazy. We understand the change, and the change isn't scary to us. We project confidence, we project trust in that. Trust me, you'll be able to use this app. Trust me, you'll be able to use this platform. Trust me, you'll see the benefit even though you might not understand it today. Trust me. But trust, like respect, isn't given for free. You have to earn it. And in the services that you offer in IoT and digital transformation, the way in which I speak about digital transformation and the lessons that I'm sharing with you today, hopefully invoke a trust in professionals and people like us, even though it looks scary. And yeah, sometimes it is. But that trust is, hey, don't worry. Even if you fail, I'll make it right. We'll work through that problem together to make it succeed. That is ultimately what this digital transformation is about and why it is only 20% of the technology and why it very much is 80% of the people.
That's a great way to summarize it. And I would add one thing that was very obvious to me, even like it was probably so obvious that I never thought about it. So if you want to be successful in whatever that is complex enough, like digital transformation, you just need to be proactive, right? Because your contract will have your a few points that you should deliver, but when in the middle of the engagement you realize that that's not enough, or maybe those are not the right points to be delivered, right? You need to be proactive enough to basically push that to the extra mile that is required, and pushing that to that extra mile requires trust, requires being in a safe zone that people grant you, the right to change the rules in the middle of the game, right? Because if you stick to the contract, if you stick to what was agreed 6 months ago, then it's very likely that you either fail or you under-deliver. So yeah, and in order for you to try to deliver, you need to be a bit crazy, as you said, because you need to work harder than you, in theory, should have, and to make the whole thing happen.
Yeah, there's this myth, work smarter, not harder, right? You're laughing. I love hearing this. Work smarter, not harder. There's only a handful of ways you can work smarter and not harder. That's have somebody work for you, right? That's smart. Have somebody else do the hard work. But this is hard work. It's complex. It's not easy. We're all sold a version of digital transformation IT that was out of the box. It'll work. It'll do amazing things, but it's still work. And we shouldn't be afraid to call it work. And we shouldn't be afraid to say that it may not work. Yes, we're making promises. Absolutely. And we stand on those promises. But I think most importantly is we stand on the solution working as we've sold it to you, or the service that we're providing to you, that you're not alone, and we will be there to help you lever the maximum benefit from this thing that we sold you, to help you work smarter and not harder.
Absolutely. And I believe that, Val, you work smart in a smart way because you worked your number of years in a hard way, right? And that the same applies to me. Like I worked extremely hard until I understood what I'm doing, and now I can do that in a smart way, which is still a work, and it still demands the effort to put in, right? So yeah, like just saying someone that is very junior at the very beginning of their journey to work smart, they do not know what does it mean to work, right? Not even to work smart. Like you just need to put the effort, and sometime in the future you will understand what you're doing. So speaking about experience, what's the best way to reach out to you for people that would like to leverage your experience?
Thank you very much. The easiest way is to reach out to me on LinkedIn. All my contact details are there. Just connect with me on LinkedIn. My contact details I think are on this podcast somewhere, on this interview. Just feel free to drop me an email, reach out to me on LinkedIn with a message, and I'll respond in time.
Perfect. I highly recommend anyone interested not only in digital transformation but in IoT in general to reaching out to this IoT Jedi, and he will use his force, and at the end of the day there is no spoon to finish with different code. Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you, Val. It was a pleasure.
Thank you, Lucas. Thank you for giving me the platform and the time. It's been interesting and a real pleasure. Very, very interesting. Thank you.
Okay, let's stay in touch, and until next time. Thank you for listening. Go to the thingrx.com to find more materials about the Internet of Things domain.